Good afternoon, and how are you? I hope you enjoyed your wonderful weekend. In England today is bank holiday, so everywhere is quiet. It's a good time to go driving fast, no cars around. However, I promised that this week is going to be quite grave and somber due to the nature of the subjects that I'll be covering. I stated in previous videos that I do not support Democrats because of their horrible liberal policies, and because I believe that Democrats with their political correctness is destroying this world, creating moral anarchy and instability while challenging tradition. And therefore I fell in love with republicanism. I fell in love with Donald Trump. And it was a special love because I believe that Donald Trump and I were patriotic. We wanted to protect the motherland. We wanted to protect Europe and our interest. The sad thing when we're protecting or looking at interest is that the terminology itself becomes quite dark and daunting. To what extent do we protect interest, and what is the Western foreign policy? And when we begin to explore the darkness, the darker the revelation surfaces. Thus, it's no wonder that on Friday, while I was doing some research, I was quite alarmed and shaken aback to discover that Donald Trump had spent he made £1 billion or dollars selling dangerous weapons to Saudi Arabia, a Muslim funding terrorist country. We all speculate that Saudi Arabia funds terrorism and maybe were the brainchild behind the 9/11 bombing. We all know that the footprints of Saudi Arabia can be seen around the world where Muslims are plotting terrorism. And yet our leader, our patriotic leader, has broken our hearts and our trust. Because we believed that Donald Trump, he really wanted to fight a war against terrorism. We really believed that he wanted to protect us. But yet, he did a one point something billion pound or sterlings or dollars arms deal with Saudi Arabia. In one of the pictures we see Donald Trump almost bowing down as he received the medal. Saudi Arabia gave him the highest medal for his work for Muslims. I repeat, Saudi Arabia gave him the highest eminence, the highest award. And we see Donald Trump bowing down, submitting, becoming effeminate for the Saudi Arabia king or prince. But what's interesting is how the newspapers picked up on this. And if you look on Google or Bing, you even see some pictures where Donald Trump is doing the Muslim call to prayer. In other words, he's become the Muslim bitch. What happened to our war, our fight against Muslim terrorism? I've always said in my previous videos, it's impossible for the Western world to really care about your safety. Despite what they say, they don't really care about your safety. If you look at my previous videos, you'll witness evidence to this statement. While we're going around fighting against the war on Muslim terrorism, it's an empty fight. Because while we are resisting, our leaders are funding them. It's the same thing that Putin, the Russian leader, noticed in regards to Assad and Al-Qaeda, which are fighting in Syria. The Western world governments, Britain and America, were funding Muslim terrorists. They were funding Al-Qaeda. It makes you wonder what kind of global matrix game is going on. And while we are being breeded like cattle, while we are reared like dumb cattle, to hate illogically, to hate irrationally, these people, they control our hate. They tell us who to hate, what to hate, and yet these same Muslim terrorists are doing deals with our Western leaders. Theresa May, she went to Saudi Arabia with the Britain Prime Minister, and she did a similar £1 billion arms deal to a Muslim terrorist country. This same Theresa May turned around and said, and I quote, "There is nothing wrong with doing business or deals with countries that has very serious human rights abuses." This is Britain's Prime Minister, Theresa May. In other words, show me the money and I'll suck your dick. Show me the money. Morals don't come into it. Patriotism does not come into it. While we're going around hating indivisible enemies, while we're going around being patriotic, fighting, we don't even know what the hell we're fighting for. Our governments don't even stand for us. Because while you think you're fighting against Muslim terrorism, our same governments are funding them. If you remembered in my previous video that I mentioned that Britain was allowing Muslim terrorists to bomb America. Read the book Londonistan by Melanie Phillips. Londonistan by Melanie Phillips, an English journalist and writer, and she pointed out that Britain were doing deals with Muslim terrorists in return for oil, and she gave, or not she, because obviously it was the government, right? And British government allowed Muslim terrorists to operate inside cells in London to bomb America, while the Americans were funding the IRA, Irish Community, to bomb Britain. Whenever there's money, there's a lot of bombing going around. Whenever there's money and oil, there's a lot of disloyalty and fake friendship. I did a video on fake friendship yesterday. There is no such thing as loyalty, friendship, or patriotism when it comes to politics. Yet we the cattle, we the sheep, the dumb cows, the dumb bulls, they get us hating, full of hate, full of anger, because they're controlling us like puppet on a string. They're controlling us and we can't see that. We are their puppet on a string. They control us and manipulate us, our behavior, our thoughts at will. And how they control us, they create laws to control our behavior, our thinking, our freedom. These governments, these reptiles, these evil spirits, they have no views. All they care about is their careers, money and oil and being in power. They have no sense of patriotism, nationalism. All they care about is money and oil. They are cursed with it. But at the same time, they need to create social disharmony. Hence why racism will never go away. Because if black and white people were to come like this, there would be a revolution. Promoting sexual immorality, that just breaks down the family, that breaks down society, that weakens people. That's okay for the New World Order, that's okay. But black and white people, the two powerful forces, they will never want us to come together. And that's the reason why the government has an interest in controlling us like puppets on a string. Tell us who to hate, who to love, and we think that we're free. We think our minds are our own. But when your government is selling arms to Muslim terrorists, you are a puppet on a string. When you vote for them, you are a puppet on a string. They tell you who to hate, who to love. They control and govern your emotions, our emotions. And that's the reason why, even though I have Republican values, I don't vote. Even though I have conservative values, I don't vote. Because when it comes down to it, they are the biggest supporters of Muslim terrorism. Any Republican or Democrats watching this video, and there's bound to be loads of you who vote either Democrat or Republican, prove to me that your government, your president, your prime minister has not sold arms to Muslim terrorists or even supported ISIS. Prove it to me. Prove it to me that your government has not sold or had a 1.5 billion arms deal with Muslim funding Saudi Arabia. Name me one of your government that's not done that. And that's the reason why I tell you, we are puppet on a string. We believe in their lies that they're fighting against terrorism. And while they claim that, they're controlling your movement, what you have on your passport, where you go. You and I are the terrorists that they try to control, not the Muslim terrorists. You and I are who they try to restrict our freedom. How do they do that? In the interest of national security. Just use that terminology and we all become scared, and we are willing to give up our freedom to a government that continues to support Muslim terrorism. It's a very shocking video, because I never knew that Donald Trump would. I thought he was a man of integrity. Call me naive, but I thought he was patriotic. I thought he loved America. I thought he was a good Christian, whatever that means. But I was wrong. Totally wrong.
You can't handle the truth!